on Turks. I'm your host, Cenk Uygur. Look at this lovely little woman producing the show. Look at Anna Kasparian going nuts over there. All right, Jesus Godoy directs the show while he's eating flour tortillas and drinking Tecate beer. That's from an earlier story. Nothing but fun. By the way, I realize I've eaten flour tortillas and drinking Tecate beer at a park. I didn't know that I'm also possibly a marijuana grower. All right, and armed and dangerous, of course. Okay, now, and by the way, I think at some point in one of these shows, I also made up a word. Umption, I don't believe is a word. Just kind of threw it in there. It happens. It happens from time to time. All right, so let's move forward. We got a lot for you. What are we going to start with in this hour? Of course, Joe Wilson, the man who yelled out, "You lie!" to the president. I have a bit of a different take on this. But first, let's see what happened. Last night, during President Obama's speech, a Republican from South Carolina yelled out at one point. Let's watch first.
There are also those who claim that our reform efforts would ensure illegal immigrants. This, too, is false. The reforms I'm proposing would not apply to those who are here illegally. It's not true. And one more misunderstanding I want to clear up. Under our plan, no federal dollars will be used to fund abortions, and federal conscience laws will remain in place. Now,
all right, there it was. Look, there was a lot of commotion, and the Republicans had planned some of this. These goofy congressmen had brought in like signs saying different things, like the one over there, what bill, you know, have you read the bill, et cetera, right? And there was a lot of mumbling back and forth before the guy just flat out shouted out, "You lie!" And, you know, part of me is obviously unacceptable. It's like they're trying to turn it into a town hall event. They're trying to turn President's speech into a town hall event. It's crazy, right? But here's my slightly controversial take on it. I don't think it's that crazy, because when we do play-by-play on the speeches, now of course that's vastly different because I'm not in the hall, right? But I point out when the president is telling the truth and not telling the truth all the time. And during Bush's State of the Unions or other addresses, I yelled out, "You lie!" only about 128 times per speech. Okay. Now again, I'm not in there. I'm not disturbing the speech. It's not part of the tradition of Congress. So it's very, very different. I get that. But, you know, I know the British system, for example, is completely different, okay? And in the British system, they yell out all the time. And then they sit down. It's fun. And there's a lot in that system that in some ways I prefer, right? And I thought we stood there on our hands, sat on our hands while Bush was in charge for so long and didn't really quite challenge him enough. Now, I don't think that's the right way to challenge him. So obviously, was it wrong? Yes. And did it break the actual rules and regulations of Congress? Absolutely. Should he have done it? No way. But for some reason, I don't find myself as outraged as others do on this. Look here, I'll go a step further. Let's put it that way. Obama earlier in the address had said that the people charging death panels and pulling the plug on grandma, that they had, quote, lied, right? Now, he's right about that. They are lying about it. There are no death panels. It's totally made up. Right? But now he didn't address to any specific person, and it's different. He's giving a speech. But, you know, if the guy shouts out, like, here, I'll put it to you this way. If a Democratic congressman had done that to George Bush, I kind of would have liked him. Okay? So that's why I'm trying to be fair here and say I'm not blown away by the lack of decorum here. It's not a good idea. You don't do it in this context. But I'm not as pissed as some other people are. And some people are pissed, right? And we've got talks of censure, and probably the smartest people are the ones that are directing that anger towards raising money for his Democratic opponent. That's smart, okay? Act Blue has already raised, and by now it's probably a hell of a lot more, but when I read the story, they had raised $350,000 already for his Democratic opponent in the next election. That'll teach you to hush up, Okay, if you want to strike at the guy, that's the best way to strike at him. Very, very smart. And then that guy, by the way, had only lost to him. His name is Rob Miller. He ran against him earlier. A very legitimate candidate. Barely lost to him in South Carolina, 54-46. So this time around, with a lot more money, who knows? Maybe he unseats him. So with that in mind, all of a sudden, well, look, I shouldn't say all of a sudden. Joe Wilson came out immediately and apologized profusely. Okay, as he should have, of course. So let's go to that apology. Let's go to clip number 9.
Last night, I heard from the leadership that they wanted me to contact the White House and state that my statements were inappropriate. I did. I'm very grateful that the White House, in talking with them, they indicated that they appreciated the call and that we needed to have a civil discussion about the healthcare issues, and I certainly agree with that. And so I'm happy to discuss the healthcare issues, and in particular on the issue, which I think is very important, of whether the bills cover would include illegal aliens or not. Also, the Congressional Resource Services has indicated that indeed the bills that are before Congress would include illegal aliens. And I think this is wrong. We need to be discussing issues specifically to help the American people. And that would not include illegal aliens. These are people, I'm for immigration, legal immigration. I've been an immigration attorney. But people who have come to our country and violated laws, we should not be providing full health care services. It was spontaneous. It was when he stated, as he did, about not covering illegal aliens, when I knew we had those 2 amendments. And I say that respectfully, and we need to discuss the issues, and I'm happy to do that.
I'll tell you, the part that I enjoyed is that he looked a little scared and nervous. He was like, sorry, I didn't quite mean it. Okay, so that was nice. But you know what he did there, very ironically? He didn't back down from his actual statement. He still thinks that the president is lying, that they really are going to cover illegal immigrants in the bill. And so the ironic thing is he's actually lying about that. So I wish I was there at the press conference. I'd have yelled out to Joe Wilson, "You lie!" So PolitiFact, which is a nonpartisan organization that checks the factual nature of these statements, went ahead and read the entire bill, read the pages of the bill that conservatives have been pointing to, saying, look, it covers illegal immigrants, and their conclusion is that Joe Wilson's statement is inaccurate. It is false, flat out false. Okay, it's a very strong statement on that. Now, why? I'll break it down for you real quick. Number one, is there anything in the bill that says, yes, illegal immigrants will be covered or by this in a way that they were not covered before, or that changes the status quo or changes the law? Absolutely not. The only mention of illegal immigrants in the bill is a passage in page 132, section 242, that excludes illegal immigrants from being able to get tax credits that other Americans can for insurance. So the only mention at all of illegal immigrants is to say they cannot take part in the tax credits. Now, PolitiFact, again, goes out of its way to be fair to both sides, as they should. And they say, all right, look, even though it doesn't mention it at all and it doesn't change the status quo, and if anything, it excludes it, well, let's go a step further. Could illegal immigrants still be covered because the status quo currently covers them? And the answer to that is yes. So, for example, in 2 different ways. So, for example, if you're an illegal immigrant and you got shot or you had a heart attack for whatever reason, and you go to the emergency room, they'll treat you. Because why? Because we're human beings and we're Americans and we don't let people die, right? So now conservatives might want to argue against that, but I'll have that argument any day. So should the bill actively say, hey, if an illegal immigrant shows up at a hospital with a head wound, don't treat him? No, come on, that's outrageous, right? So that's nothing. And the only other way that you can make an argument is they say it doesn't specifically exclude illegal immigrants from taking part in the public option, right? So now let's break that down. Right now in the system, illegal immigrants can buy health insurance. They can buy private insurance. They can buy it from Aetna. They can buy it from Blue Cross Blue Shield. Nobody ever asks them, hey, are you a citizen or are you not a citizen, right? Now, in the bill, since they don't exclude illegal immigrants and they don't mention illegal immigrants, I don't know, they probably never even thought of it, to be honest with you. Can they either buy Blue Cross Blue Shield, Aetna, or the government-run option? As it's currently stated, yeah, they could. But do you really want to say, oh, no, anyone who's buying insurance, whether it's public insurance or private insurance, we have to do a citizenship check on them? No, that's extra bureaucracy. And honestly, why do I even care? I don't think the illegal immigrants obviously should be here, but why do I care if they have health insurance or they don't? I don't see why I would care. But if you're trying to make an argument that this bill all of a sudden gives some sort of advantages or changes the law in any way to cover illegal immigrants, to just give them insurance paid for by the American taxpayer, that is only 1,000,000% wrong. It's just not the case at all. So my main problem with Joe Wilson isn't that he blurted something out. It's that what he blurted out was ironically a lie. And that's a lie that they've been pushing for a long, long time. So now that we've got that clear, I want to go to Rush Limbaugh because I'm having fun with this. Can you guys guess? You want to take a guess with me as to what Rush's position was on whether Joe Wilson should have apologized or not? Okay, let's go to clip number 4. No, you know what? 15. Let's go to clip 15.
That was a blatant lie. I'm going to tell you something. One of the things that's really irritated me all morning and last night was listening to Republicans, even after Wilson has apologized, and I wish he had not. But he's apologized, and even after he's apologized, members of his own party are all over television denigrating it. Yeah, it was bad decorum. Folks, can I tell you what's happening here?
Please.
This speech last night and this administration is not your average presidential administration. This is not a garden party. This is not a lecture at Harvard or any other university. We are in the process. We are in the midst of an administration that is trying to totally tear down the institutions and traditions that have made this country great. He is lying, President Obama is, from the moment he opens his mouth until he ends the speech. I was shouting, "You're lying," throughout the speech, at the television. You're lying. Yet a lie. Joe Wilson simply articulated what millions of Americans were saying.
Now, today's been a weird day. Okay, like I said, that's what I was saying during the Bush thing. So now I don't mind Rush saying that. Of course, screaming at his TV. He should. He doesn't agree with the guy, right? The two things I mind are you don't say it in front of Congress, in the middle of Congress. Otherwise, that's just not our rules. If we had the British system, yes, but we don't. Otherwise, everybody's going to be shouting in the middle of the State of the Union or whatever address to Congress it is. In this case, it was not a State of the Union. And it's going to be a mess, right? So, of course, the guy should have apologized. And then point number 2 is, on the substance of it, did you hear what Rush said? Rush said he's trying to destroy this country, the foundations of this country, and everything he said is a lie. But he doesn't ever back it up with facts. Like, I just did with political fact. You go back, you look at the bill, you know how they always screaming, read the bill, read the bill? They actually read the bill. And of course, these guys haven't. And you find out, is it true or is it untrue? They don't, but they're trying to appeal to your emotions, not to your logic, right? So that's why they never bother, if you listen closely, they never bother giving you the facts. They just scare the living bejesus out of you as much as humanly possible. So, but there's one more Rush one, and I'm not surprised at this reaction either. Let's go to clip number 14.
There are Medicare panels. It's in the bill. You want them run out of the White House. They are going to determine who gets treated and who doesn't.
Not true. Not even close to true.
It just takes a little common sense to understand that this is going to be health care rationing when you and your buddies in Washington are in total control of it. So we're not lying. We're not spreading bogus claims. You call us out, we're going to hit back twice as hard. Isn't that how it goes, Mr. President? You call us out, we're going to hit back twice as hard. Sarah Palin's hit back today on her Facebook page. She's not backing down at all from anything she said, and she's continuing to point out that the president's misrepresenting and lying to people.
Well, that's a nice threat. Well, that's what Rush does. He does threats. But you know what? Unfortunately, that's what Fox does, and sometimes the president buckles to those threats. So, okay, yeah, I'm the bad guy, but it's true. So now, the part that did amuse me was, And Sarah Palin is not backing down. Ooh. But the flip side to that is, you know what drives me crazy? She won on the death panel analysis. You know they took that out of the bill? The advising you on end-of-life decisions, it's just completely voluntary. It's actually something that would have been a nice thing to get covered, right, on, that you get a doctor as part of your coverage to come and talk to you about what your choices are in the end of life. No one rationally could disagree with it. In fact, some Republicans introduced it. But they took it out because of Sarah Palin and Rush Limbaugh's demagoguery. And that's just, it hurts the head thinking about that. And look, one more thing on this. You know, he says, oh, it's going to be rationing and this is the plan of the Democrats, et cetera, and eventually they're going to decide who lives, who dies, et cetera. That whole nonsense, right? Now, I'm not a Democrat. I'm an independent, and I don't, people who've been listening to me certainly for the last couple of weeks, couple of months, couple of years know that I don't always support Barack Obama, not by a long shot. In fact, I'm annoying a hell of a lot of you by talking about how he's not going to do what he's going to say he's going to do on the public option or when it comes to the banks, et cetera, et cetera. You know that whole spiel. So I look at it from my perspective, okay? Now, would I want my health care, quote unquote, rationed by government bureaucrats? Of course not. Why would I sign on for that? If that's what the plan did, why would I be, hey, Anna, Jesus, JR, I got a great idea. Let's get into a health care plan and let the government bureaucrat come in. I don't know what his name is, but he'll come in with the glasses on, spectacles probably, and say, all right, you get this and you don't get that, and we probably won't get a lot of our coverage. We won't get if we get sick, we probably won't get covered. Why? Why would we be in favor of that? How do we win from that? Of course that's not what's happening. And again, he didn't give you any facts. He just demagogued on it. He just tried to scare the hell out of you because that's what conservatives do. And, you know, it's a little sad if you buy into it. You know, if you get frightened by these demagogues, I feel bad for you because you live in the shadows. You live like a scary. Find out what's actually in the bill. Don't trust these guys. Hey, heck, don't trust me. Go and read not the whole 1,000-page bill. That's unreasonable. But read reports about it, like the PolitiFact report. They bother to read it for you and break it down in a page and a half. Okay? All right. Young Turks.
From Howard 101 XM listen.
Like a ladder to the sun, makes me feel like a madman on the run. Find me.
All right, back on the Young Turks. You know, if you disagree with me on anything, whether it's, you know, my reaction to Joe Wilson, reaction to Glenn Beck, my thoughts on the public option, etc. You know what's a good way to communicate with us? Just want to throw this out there real quick. Is Twitter, believe it or not. Now, we get emails through our website, theyoungturks.com, and I try to read as many of the emails as possible. It gets a little overwhelming, but if you tweet it out, I know this is goofy, but if you do, I will almost certainly read it. So I don't mind the objections. By all means, send them in, because I think I learned from something from it. We're, of course, at twitter.com/theyoungturks. If you do @theyoungturks, then it comes to us the way Twitter works. Okay, just want to let you know that real quick. Now, I want to mention a couple of quick things about Joe Wilson before we move on. It's the Republican and Democratic reaction. And Republicans, to be fair to them, to give them credit here, came out immediately and said it was a terrible idea and he shouldn't have done it. Senators and congressmen, they were a little angry with him. Okay, so there was proper reaction. Now, the thing is, if the shoe was on the other foot, though, the Republicans would have never let it go, right? They would have pounced on the guy and censured him. They would have gone and did legislation, et cetera, and they would have taken it to Congress. There's no way they would have let up on this for days and days and days. Now, let's see the Democratic reaction instead. Let's go to Joe Biden. This is clip number 12, guys, and see how he handles it.
Or what would you say to somebody like a Joe Wilson?
Well, I would say, Joe, you embarrassed an institution I love. And you realized it and you apologized. We accept the apology. But you know, the real message, I think, Meredith, out there, was your next guest, John McCain, and the Republican leadership. What did they do? They immediately stepped away from Joe's outburst and indicated that an apology was offered. I think what you saw last night is an exception to the rule. The rule is that the Congress is prepared. It is not divided like in the emotional way in which Joe Wilson's outburst indicates. It is divided on some of the details of how to get about this. That's legitimate. It's real. We'll fight that out in the next several weeks. But I saw unity in the Congress in terms of the response to Joe Wilson's demeaning comment, not only to the president, but to an institution I love.
Now, there's three parts of that. One part I agree with. I think the Republican reaction was pretty good. I don't have any problem with it. But as the second part is strategy. As a matter of strategy, I don't agree with it. Because the Republicans, if the shoe was on the other foot, would have gone ballistic and gained a lot of, leeway with it. They would have gained, I don't know if credibility is the right word, but they would have gotten the media to talk about how the Democrats always do this, and this guy is unacceptable, and he's the worst, and he's fringe, and all the left guys are fringe, and you see this is how liberals are. They would have done that. Look, to give you a sense of it, the Republicans censured MoveOn, the organization MoveOn.org, because of a newspaper ad they took out about General Petraeus. Now, what do you think they would have done if a Democratic congressman had yelled out, "You lie," to George Bush in the middle of one of his speeches to Congress? Would they have censured him? Absolutely. If he had apologized right away, do you think they would have just accepted the apology and moved on? Hell no. You know it, I know it, everybody knows it, right? What do the Democrats do instead? They go, "Oh, no, the Republicans handled it perfectly. Thank you so much for handling it so well." Strategically speaking, it's not the best way to go. Look, you seem reasonable. You seem like a good guy, Joe Biden, but you never frame them as the bad guys. They always frame you as the bad guys, as the fringe. And instead, Joe Biden here helping them to paint them as mainstream and good guys and the right guys. That brings us to point number 3. He said several times there, look, it goes to show you we're not actually divided. I always wonder with Obama and Biden, did they really mean it? Because those guys, for Congress, is 1,000,000% divided. They don't vote for anything that you put forward. How much more divided could it be? And it's like, do they honestly believe that they're going to reach out and reach out and reach out and finally the Republicans are going to reach back? Or is it some sort of strategy where they're trying to look reasonable or something, but in the meanwhile they're accidentally making the Republicans look reasonable when they're not at all unreasonable. You should point out to the American people, we see that when we reach out, they never reach back. Instead, they do outbursts like "you lie." So strategically speaking, I don't think they're handling it the right way. Now, PCCC is a progressive organization. They're hard-hitting, and they've already got a movement out there to censure Joe Wilson, no matter what the Democrats in Congress do. But everybody's wrapped it up. They were angry in the beginning, but Pelosi says, "Oh, move on. Oh, please, come on. We don't want to waste any more time on this. No, God forbid we should take political advantage of an enormous opening that the Republicans gave us. No. Let's let it go, because I'm sure they would do the same." Now, finally, is it going to help Joe Wilson or not? And the reality is, it might hurt him because, like I told you before, Act Blue, which you should really check out, is an organization that raises money for real progressives, has raised money for his opponent, $350,000 last time I checked, probably much higher than that by now, right? So check out Act Blue on that. But this guy, he's going to become a bit of a conservative folk hero, and he'll get more money that way. The Rush Limbaughs, etc., will be on his side. We already heard from Rush Limbaugh saying he shouldn't even apologize, etc. And nobody knew Joe Wilson before. They know him now, and I bet a lot of the conservatives in the country love him now. And so might he actually benefit from this in the long run? Yeah, he really could. So that would be an extra little twist in the ribs there. So look, I don't want to encourage the Democrats to be unreasonable, but you got to know how the political game is played, and it seems like they never know how the political game is played, and that's why they keep getting rolled over. Now, look, one more thing in relationship to that, which is I might be wrong, and I'm not even saying this as a definitive thing. I know that in the short term, it's the wrong way to play it, in my estimation. In the long term, I am open to the idea that who knows, maybe after 4 years, the Republicans do start reaching back. that it's a long slog, but Obama and Biden's strategy of reaching out, maybe it actually does eventually create a new era of bipartisanship. It seems inconceivable to me, but I am conceiving it. I have an open mind about it. But I think it's going to go one of two ways. I think 10 years from now, Obama is either going to be given tremendous credit for doing what seemed impossible in actually getting Republicans to be reasonable and to work with him, etc., on parts that they agree on, right? Or they'll be doing an interview with Obama and he'll say, yeah, one of the biggest mistakes of my presidency was continuing to believe that I could get anywhere in reaching out to Republicans, and I misspent a lot of political capital trying to do that when I should have been hitting back harder and presenting my side of the case harder and more forcefully. It could go either way. We don't know yet. But to be fair to Obama, last night, and on the public option side, I didn't like what he said. But outside of that, he did present his case forcefully for the first time in a long time. And if he continues to do that going forward, I think he'll almost certainly, as I've said all along, actually, of course, get health care reform passed. Of course, the question is, what's in that health care reform? Now, before we get into health care reform a little bit more, another thing that I wanted to point out to you in terms of how the Democrats keep conceding to Republicans. Glenn Beck got his second scalp today. Yossi Sargent, the communications director for the National Endowment for the Arts, has stepped down because of a segment that Glenn Beck did on him. I talked about this earlier in the show, and Beck was actually somewhat right about that. Yossi Sargent, I thought, did a conference call that was too political in relation to the National Endowment of the Arts. But overall, in the context of what's been happening now, it's not that great an idea politically. As an objective, I wear a couple of different hats on this show. As an objective person looking at it, should the Obama administration take an action against Yossi Sargent? Yes, I think they should have. Now, if I put on my other hat of strategist, politically, would I have done it now? No, I would have reprimanded them, and I would have made clear that they shouldn't take any kind of political action at the NEA, but I probably wouldn't have fired him. So those are two different hats to wear there. But as it is, the Republicans and the conservatives gaining more and more momentum, right? That brings me back to Van Jones. So they got rid of Van Jones, and do you think that they were going to be happy with just getting rid of Van Jones and now getting rid of Yossi Sargent? No, of course not. They're going to ask, there's blood in the water. And what happens when there's blood in the water? More sharks arrive. All right, you ready for more sharks? Here's Sean Hannity, clip number 4. Was getting rid of Van Jones enough? Let's listen.
All right, so we know the White House sought out Van Jones, which begs the question, how many more like him are serving in our government? Is Van Jones just the tip of the iceberg? We know, for example, there's John Holdren, the science and technology advisor, who has advocated compulsory abortion. And then there's Cass Sunstein, the Harvard law professor, who wants to ban hunting and grant rights to livestock, wildlife, and pets. Now, we can only conclude that it's time to take a much closer look at who exactly this president has now serving in our government.
All right, so here they go, a new list of people they're going to go after. Let's now go to Beck, of course, who's at it more. Now, you saw Hannity mention icebergs. It's a theme that they're going to go back to. Clip number 2.
This isn't about Van Jones.
No.
It's not.
Of course.
Van Jones, I think, is a very scary guy. But the White House has just swept him out with the trash. And they haven't answered the questions. Remember, this wasn't about Van Jones. This is to try to figure out who the President of the United States is by looking at the people he surrounds himself with. One of his own special advisors stepped down over the weekend. But if you think Van Jones is gone and forgotten, you're wrong. And I've been thinking about it this weekend. Just to try to figure out a way where I can explain this to you, where it would make sense, and bring you here over the
not gonna happen.
103, as we like to call it, 103-inch monitor. This is wow. Can you bring up the iceberg, please?
Here we go again.
Just say this is the USS Constitution. Remember, these are all of the czars, and here's what's happened. This is the USS Constitution, if you will. Gee, it looks a little like the Titanic. It's sailing along and it's fine, and it sees an iceberg up here. Well, what's happened? Without asking any questions, without providing any answers, without giving us any new information, they have just taken Van Jones and dropped him. Does he drop? And dropped him underneath the water. Well, if anybody knows anything about icebergs, this is not the dangerous part.
That's it.
This is the dangerous part. There is much more under the surface of the water of an iceberg.
Oh.
That's why I have said, until you get any answers. You know, Barack Obama tomorrow may come up with the best idea for health care. That's fine. But until you get answers, you cannot let that ship, if you were a good captain of this ship, what would you say? Oh, well, the iceberg, it just got a little smaller. Would you say that? Or would you say, full stop? The ship is about to be sunk because we don't see the iceberg underneath. Full stop. Don't let them pass anything. And that's for the Republicans as well, because remember, the Republicans have passed some really bad stuff as well.
I love how he throws in that at the end to appear bipartisan or nonpartisan. Oh, please. All right, so you went to the iceberg analogy. I didn't see that coming. Really, it's tip of the iceberg. You know what that means? That means whatever Obama does, whoever he fires, it is never enough. We'll always say it's the tip of the iceberg and he's got to fire more. He had more people at the tip of the iceberg. If Obama fired all of them, he'd still say, oh, well, that was the tip of the iceberg. Now you have to get rid of the whole iceberg. If Obama stepped down, I'm not sure Glenn Beck would say that that's enough. Look, the eventual goal is Obama. Remember, at every chalkboard he does, he has Obama at the top and circles it. He wants to knock out these little guys and then eventually get to Obama. Because, and look at what he's asking for. He says, no, Van Jones being fired, that meant nothing. That meant nothing. No, we want more, right? Okay, so what do you want? I want answers. What are you, Tom Cruise in A Few Good Men? All right, look, I know you want answers. To what? What was Obama supposed to do? Come out and be like, all right, well, Van Jones is resigned. Now I would like to answer all of Glenn Beck's questions. I mean, was that? I don't even know what your questions are. Okay, I can't even make sense of them. But you really think Obama's going to do a press conference and say, okay, look, I'm going to answer Glenn Beck's questions. And then what is his Beck's solution? Make sure they don't pass anything. That's very constructive. Okay, very, very constructive. You see which direction they're going here. All right, now, finally, one last one. Because they're going to bring in Michelle Malkin, again, to give you a sense of what the future holds for us. Let's go to clip number 3.
Michelle, I want to talk to you a little bit about, first of all, the new guy that was appointed yesterday. What is his name? He's the new green job czar.
Ron Bloom.
Ron Bloom.
Ron Bloom.
What do you know about this guy?
Let's go get him.
Well, he is known as a union hatchet man among folks who have been watching big labor for decades. He cut his teeth in labor organizing at the feet of John Sweeney when John Sweeney was the head of the Service Employees International Union. And it was with John Sweeney's blessing that Ron Bloom went on to Harvard Business School.
Oh, no.
Their intention was that he should insinuate himself in the business world, understand how their antagonists and enemies work, and then go back into the labor union and use what he knew to shake down and to make them bend to their will. And that's what he's done over the last several decades.
How devious. He went to business school. Now, that seems like the kind of thing that a conservative might not object to. No, of course, it was to spy in on the people going to business school and understand their ways so he could work for a union. You see, he was talking about unions and jobs, and then he got a job as a green job czar. Well, that would seem pretty logical, wouldn't it? Who else were they going to hire? A guy who knows about jobs and creating jobs and protecting jobs becomes the green job czar. And does anyone think out there that if they had nominated someone else, they'd say, oh, no, that's fine. Oh, that guy's fine. No, don't worry about it. No, they're going to go after every green job czar. And what did she have on him? He was in the union. And there you go. So, look, I said it before, but Obama's got to hear this warning, man. If he keeps feeding into this and he keeps firing people that Glenn Beck tells him to hire, there is no end to it. This will last forever, and they will want you to fire every single person in your administration. You got to draw the line somewhere. All right, Young Turks.
This is Bob Edwards at Sirius XM Radio.
He wasn't there when I needed him. No, he was never around. His reputation was preceding him, and he was out on the town. It didn't matter if he let me down.
All right, back on the Young Turks. We're going to move on to Obama's speech. Before we do, final thought on Van Jones. You know who, what he created before he left the administration? Cash for clunkers. The one thing that worked really well, that everyone concedes worked really well for the administration. That was Van Jones' idea before he even joined the administration. He originally wrote a paper on it and he called it Hoopties for Hybrids. So they fired the one guy that came up with the one good idea. Look, that's not fair. There's a lot of good ideas coming out of the Obama administration. But the one thing that everyone almost universally agrees was a successful program. When you fire the smart guys because you're giving in to conservatives, not a good idea. All right, now look, Obama does some things right, of course. He's a very smart guy, and look, he went a long way in this speech. I'll be totally honest here and totally fair. I hope that in the speech he went a long way towards convincing me that maybe. And I was not really that open to this before, and he made me a little bit more open to it. That maybe that if they do the healthcare reform without the public option, that it might still be good enough. Now that's a big concession for me, okay? Because I'm still at a definite maybe there, okay? I even feel bad saying it. Now again, I get wearing two different hats here. As the objective person looking at this, I see it as, well, maybe we should, we could come back to the public option 4 years, 5 years, 10 years later. I know. That sounds terrible, right? And I don't want to go in that direction. As a person wearing the strategic hat, I'd say, hell no. You vote no, and you deliver on that threat so that they know that they can't always have you buckling and they don't keep going rightward and rightward and rightward, right? But, that he laid out such a good case for the rest of his package, okay? Universal, as good as they can get to universal coverage, and then not having rescission anymore, and not being excluded for pre-existing conditions, and that we've been waiting a long time for all of these, right? Now, I don't think he made a very good case that he was going to keep or fight for the public option. No, quite the opposite. In fact, for those of you who don't believe me on that, I have a direct quote. Here's what Obama said in the speech. "It is only one part of my plan," referring to the public option, "and should not be used as a handy excuse for the usual Washington ideological battles. To my progressive friends, I would remind you that for decades, the driving idea behind reform has been to end insurance company abuses and make coverage affordable for those without it. The public option is only a means to that end, and we should remain open to other ideas that accomplish our ultimate goal." Look, if you remove it from the context of that, what was otherwise a great speech, and you look at those words, it's obvious. He's saying, we're going to do this without the public option. I mean, he's telling you, progressive friends, be open to doing it without it. Like, he might still do it if he's pressured, and I'm not saying he doesn't want to do it, but it looks like that they're not going in that direction. But we've spoken too much about that. I'm going to do other aspects of the public option in a second, not related to Obama's take on it, okay? All right, now, but before we do that, how did this speech go overall? As I suspected, fantastic. And I wish I'd said this yesterday, but I didn't say it, so I don't get any credit for it, and I hate not giving myself credit for it. Anyway, the polls swung immediately. I swear to you, I thought that, but I didn't say it yesterday. But they swung immediately. CNN opinion poll group that was 53% in favor of Obama's health care proposal swung to 2/3 in favor. Okay, 2/3 is a giant number. Now that CNN opinion poll is actually a little skewed. It had more Democrats in it than the number of Democrats in the overall population. So, if it was by itself, you'd say that's a little bit of a questionable poll. It just happened that way that they got more Democrats in that poll. Democracy Core poll, evenly split, and even for there, the independents jumped 20%. And now, again, 2/3 in that same poll of independents saying they're in favor of healthcare reform, Obama's healthcare reform package. AARP did a poll of senior citizens, again, independents, and 77% said that they had concerns about the bill before the speech. 72% afterwards said those concerns were addressed. Those are phenomenal numbers. He, again, outside the public option, he knocked it out of the park and got everybody thinking, hey, you know what? Maybe they are scaremongering on the right, and we should calm down, and we do need health care reform. So mission accomplished on that front. All right, now, I got something here on Chuck Todd that drives me crazy. I don't mean to pick on Chuck Todd. It's just the things that he says that come up. Otherwise, I got no problems with Chuck Todd as a general principle, obviously, right? I think somewhat obviously. I don't know the guy. I don't know why I'd have anything against him. So, but he wrote this about the public option. Quote, fixing the public option fetish. So he's calling it, in the title, a fetish that we have. He says, but the speech also will be a failure if progressives, Obama's second audience tonight, are still obsessing over the public option a week from now. We've said this before and we'll say it again. Obama never made the public option the focus of his health care ideas, in the primaries or in the general election. In fact, he never uttered the words public option or public plan in his big campaign speeches on health care. Now, I went back to those speeches, and he mentions option, right, in a way that makes it clear that it's the public option. He doesn't say public option in those exact words, but the reference is enormously clear, right? And it's in his plan. If you go to the White House website, it's a clear, argument in favor of the public option. So it's not like Obama never was in favor of the public option. The reason I hate this quote by Chuck Todd, two reasons. One, he's making like the public option seem like something, that we have a fetish for, like something freakish, like, oh God, it's gotta be, because of some ideological bent that we have or something. No, dude, we want it because we want lower costs. Is that a fetish? That's what is that? That's unacceptable? That's perverse? That we want lower premiums? Isn't that half the point of healthcare reform? Yes, half the point is more coverage, okay, of more people and of more conditions. So we have peace of mind. But the other half of the point is to bring down costs. If you don't have the public option, we're worried that you're not going to be able to bring that cost. Why is that some freakish, progressive, liberal, far-left thing? So it's like, it bothers me because every progressive position is outside the mainstream. No, 77% of the American people support the public option, but it's a fetish to Chuck Todd. Oh, if you're in favor of it, oh, yeah, weirdo left. Why don't you just wear like women's underwear or something? Fetish guys. And the second reason that I'm superbly annoyed by it is because look at how much he sucks up to the administration. Now, I'm in favor of the administration in general, although not on this topic, so I should be happy about that. But I'm not. I don't want the media to be suck-ups to power. Chuck Todd, right there, is making the exact point that the administration wants them to make. Oh, we never argued for this. No, what are you talking about? I don't know why the left is blowing this out of proportion. It was always a minor thing for us. Oh, please. Come on. No. I mean, again, being a stenographer for the administration. They did it under Bush. Now they're doing it for Obama. And it's unacceptable either way. All right. You want to know, by the way, who wrote the big compromise for Max Baucus in the Senate for health care? Her name is Liz Fowler. She is a former vice president for WellPoint healthcare company. Really funny how that works. You know what? When you look at, and Jane Hampshire wrote about this on Fire Dog Like, another point I had not seen before. When you look at an amendment that Blue Dog Democrat Mike Ross wrote in the House, before Baucus's bill came out in this version came out in the Senate, it had the same language. Do you know what that means? That means the healthcare industry already wrote both of them. It's not like Baucus doesn't say, I looked at Ross's amendment and copied it. No, it had the same language because it was written by the same people, the healthcare industry. These are not conservative Democrats, they're corporatist Democrats. That's what we're trying to fight against, because it isn't about Republican or Democrat. It's about big money versus the people. By the way, even Gibbs says Baucus never gave him the version of his bill, but the lobbyists had it before the White House did. It's interesting that the White House was complaining about that, But so do you understand that? The most important Democratic senator on the Finance Committee working on healthcare reform, he finishes up his piece of legislation and he hands it to the lobbyists first, and then a couple of days later sends it to the White House. Okay. Now the reality is it didn't work that way. It worked the opposite way. They had written it, they gave it to Max Baucus, and then Max Baucus gave it to the White House. That's why the lobbyists on K Street already had it. That's what we're trying to fight against. It's not a partisan issue. It's not some sort of progressive pipe dream that we've always had for decades and decades. It's not some ideologically rigid position. It's a position that we have because we want lower costs, and the guys who don't want us to have the lower costs are the guys making the money off of the higher premiums. That's the real battle. Now, I got a great quote from Claire McCaskill. I'm going to have to save it for tomorrow because we're running out of time today on this. And then I promised it yesterday, but we got to do it tomorrow. The real battle is between big money and the people. I'm going to give you the numbers behind that on tomorrow's Young Turks.